David, how are you, my friend?
Good morning. I just have to be clear, Sean, I'm not from the Jewish Council. I'm co-director of the Israel Institute.
Israel Institute, that's right, yeah.
I don't want to step on any toes or misrepresent anyone.
That's all right. David, I want to get to this flag burning thing first. I've really struggled with that this week and the Free Speech Union's position on it. I just don't see how that cannot be a hate crime in New Zealand in the context of what has happened since the 7th of October. Do you have a position on that?
I do. So, full disclosure, I'm actually on the council of the Free Speech Union.
Yeah, I know.
As well.
That's why I thought it might be interesting to ask you.
And I put my name to the press release. And the reason that I did that was on principle. Let me make a few preliminary comments because I think this is an important issue, and you're very well to raise it. There's a lot of pain and hurt and vulnerability by the Jewish and the Israeli community in New Zealand and around the world. And seeing the Israeli flag being burnt at that anti-Israel protest was anxiety-inducing for a lot of people. It's not pleasant at all, and in no way, shape, or form am I wanting to say that it's okay. The point of the Free Speech Union is to protect free speech, and that includes the expression of burning a flag or other forms of expression. And I think my first knee-jerk reaction was very much like yours, Sean. I have to be honest. That I saw that and I felt like it was a threat, and it certainly at this time is difficult to take. But actually, if you slightly step back, this war that's going on between Hamas and the IDF is really a battle between barbarians who slaughter and mutilate and kidnap babies and infants and elderly and women and children, and the only liberal democracy in the Middle East. And the freedoms that Hamas want to take away from everyone are exactly the types of freedoms that we should cherish here increasingly. So the freedom to go out and express yourself, however vile that expression is to some people, we should stand by. I don't
know, to be honest, if we aren't throwing the baby out with the bathwater, if you'll excuse the impression. Expression.
I hear you. I understand. Look, I've got a lot of flack for this from people in the Jewish community, and I'm very happy to talk about it because I think it's a very important issue. The real problem that I see is not that some people burnt a flag. And in 2014, the same thing happened, by the way, where they actually managed to light the Israeli and the US flag down the bottom of Queen Street in Auckland. And it wasn't prosecuted. But that to the side, the real issue that I see is that there's no condemnation from our leaders for it. David Seymour is the only politician that I've seen condemn it. Is he the only anti-racist in Parliament? Really?
Yeah, okay. People have got freedom like I have to say. I think it's wrong. And to be honest, David, it makes, and I'm going to use my free speech to say this, if you're an immigrant into this country or a refugee in this country, you come here, you friggin' well fit in, and you don't bring your arguments, your religious arguments and animosities onto our shores. And if you want to, go home. Go back to your own country and peddle your misery and your hate somewhere else. I'm sorry, that's my freedom of speech, you know?
Yeah, I'll push back on you a little bit. I think there's a lot of great things that immigrants brought to this country, and my family are immigrant families as well. But the meta point that you just made was, I think, we live in a liberal, free, democratic society, and we want to keep it that way. And I think part of keeping it that way is in the face of people expressing themselves in ways that we find abhorrent, we say, you're allowed to do that. And we find that abhorrent, and we condemn that. And no right-minded person should be like that. I'd rather go the next step and take them all
to the curb, to be honest. David?
The fact that we had some MPs speak at that rally and not distance themselves from it is to my mind even worse, because
and that's what I want to come to. No condemnation, no comment, I don't think, from the Human Rights Commission, except bending over backwards on this. But David Seymour, the only MP to speak out against it, we have got the Māori Party and the Green Party actively, I would say, when we take the tenor of their conversations, we have got them actively promoting the cause of Hamas, in my opinion.
I think that's probably fair. They say that they condemn what Hamas did, and then very quickly turn to, but the real problem is Israel, and make all sorts of excuses and justifications, and call for a ceasefire, which just means Hamas get to keep the hostages, the 228 people that are still kept in hostage. They get to keep firing rockets and breaching ceasefires and putting civilians into even more risk, rather than supporting the IDF in its goal of eradicating the oppressors of the people of Gaza and a threat to Israel.
David, well, you were very emotional last time we spoke, and I think with very, very good reason. You sound more collected right now. Does that mean that things are any better internationally or in Israel itself and, in Gaza for the Israeli people? Are things on the improve, on the rise? Where are we at?
No, there's an old joke, Sean, that says a Jewish pessimist says that things can't get any worse, whereas a Jewish optimist says, of course they can. And I think we're kind of at that stage. The initial horror and shock is waning a little bit as we process what happened, or try to process what happened. There are still stories of absolutely barbaric acts, and there are still bodies to identify because they were so mutilated. And so that's why the death count in Israel is steadily increasing, unfortunately. But our minds have to turn to, how do we stop this happening again? And that requires resolve, that requires some strength, and that requires careful action to ensure that civilians are not unnecessarily harmed in the process, which is why Israel's not just carpet bombing completely.
And I see claims that you haven't just whole-scale invaded. Looks like you got troops massed on the border. When you see a target you can go for, you go for it, and there's collateral damage. But the Geneva Convention hasn't been breached, as I understand. War crimes haven't been committed.
Well, that's something that should be investigated, but I think people that are claiming that they have without good evidence are stirring the hate pot yet again.
David,
and that hate spills over. So we've seen a mob in Russia go to the airport looking for Jews to lynch. A Tunisian synagogue's been destroyed. A Berlin synagogue's been firebombed. Jewish students in the US have barricaded themselves in the cafeterias. Jewish homes in Paris have been marked with the Star of David. There have been incidents all across the world. And as an optimist, I say New Zealand could get a lot worse.